The notification popped up while I was wiping the kitchen counter. Just a soft chime. One line of text. Account activity reviewed. My hand froze around the sponge. The water kept running too loud in the quiet house. He was at work. I was alone. And still my stomach dropped because that message meant he had looked. It meant he was watching again. I stared at my phone until the screen went dark, and in that reflection I barely recognized my own face. I married him when I was 20. Back then, the way he talked sounded like confidence. He liked plans. He liked rules. He said they made life calmer. I believed him. When we moved into this house, he sat me down at the small dining table, the one with the wobbling leg, and slid a notebook toward me. He had written out our monthly budget in neat lines. "This stuff," he said, tapping the page, "is a man's business. I'll take care of it. You won't have to worry." I remember nodding. I remember feeling relieved. I worked then too, but my paycheck went into the joint account he managed. I kept a little notebook of my own expenses like he asked. Groceries, gas, coffee here and there. He said transparency was important. He said it like a favor. Over time the rules multiplied. No purchases over $50 without asking. Receipts on the counter. Explanations that had to make sense to him. If they didn't, he'd go quiet. Not angry. Calm. That was worse. "We're a team," he'd say, and somehow it always meant I was the one who needed to adjust. The savings started small enough that I didn't even call it that at first. The grocery store offered cash back, and I took $10, then $20, slipping the bills into the pocket of my winter coat. I told myself it was just for emergencies. Everyone needs a little cushion. I started choosing the self-checkout so no one would see. I learned which cashier never looked at the screen. At home, I folded the receipts carefully. I lined them up so the totals looked normal. I practiced my explanations in my head while driving back, my heart beating too fast for such a boring errand. Sometimes he didn't ask. Sometimes he did. When he did, I smiled and talked about prices going up. He nodded like he already knew. The money lived in strange places at first. Inside an old cookbook. In a box of tampons under the sink. Later, when I felt braver, I opened a second account online using my maiden name. I used my work computer on my lunch break, clearing the browser history, my hands shaking even though no one was watching. I moved $5 at a time, 10 on a good week. I checked the balance late at night, the phone light low under the blanket. I wasn't planning to leave then. I just wanted the option. I wanted to know I could. The first close call happened on a Sunday afternoon. He was in the garage reorganizing shelves for the third time that month. I was in the bedroom switching out summer clothes. I heard my name casual, too casual. "Hey, what's this?" He stood in the doorway holding the cookbook, my cookbook, the one with notes in the margins from my mother. My mouth went dry. I walked over slowly. He flipped a page. The money wasn't there. I had moved it the night before. I laughed too loud. "Just recipes," I said. He watched my face for a long second, longer than necessary, then shrugged and went back to the garage. I sat on the bed afterward, shaking, and told myself I was being dramatic. Work was the one place I felt like myself. I answered phones, filled out forms, did things that had clear results. My coworker Maya sat across from me. She had a laugh that cut through the office hum. Sometimes we ate lunch together in her car because it felt private. One day she asked why I always paid cash for everything. I joked about budgeting. She looked at me, really looked, and didn't push. The job offer came on a Tuesday. An email with my name in the subject line. Another state. A position I had applied for late one night, half as a fantasy. Better pay. My own projects. I read it 3 times before it felt real. My hands were cold. I closed my office door and cried without making a sound. On the drive home, the sky was pink and gray. I practiced telling him. I practiced not telling him. At the house, the porch light was already on. Inside, the kitchen smelled like lemon cleaner. He had organized my mail into piles. I thanked him. He smiled like he'd done me a favor. That night, as we lay in bed, he talked about tightening our budget. Just small changes. Cutting back. Being smart. His hand rested heavy on my arm. I stared at the ceiling fan turning slow and thought about the email waiting in my inbox. In the dark, my phone buzzed once more. Another alert. I didn't look. I knew something had shifted. And I knew suddenly that he felt it too. The next morning I woke before my alarm. The room still blew with early light. The house was silent except for the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. That steady mechanical breath that made everything feel too calm. I lay there listening for him. His side of the bed was warm and empty. He was already up. I slid my phone off the nightstand and checked the notification from last night. The message itself didn't say much, just that the account had been accessed. But I knew his habits. When he checked the finances, it wasn't casual. It was a sweep. He liked to see patterns. He liked to catch tiny things and hold them up like proof. In the bathroom, I brushed my teeth and watched my own eyes in the mirror. They looked tired in a way I couldn't hide. I ran cold water over my wrists until my skin stung like it could reset me. He was in the kitchen with his laptop open, coffee steaming beside it. The overhead light was on, bright and unforgiving. He looked up when I walked in, smiling like everything was normal. "Morning," he said. "Morning," I replied and reached for a mug. My hands didn't shake, but my stomach felt hollow. He turned the laptop slightly, not offering it, just letting me see the screen out of the corner of my eye. Spreadsheets, categories, neat columns. He loved neat columns. "I went through our spending," he said, stirring his coffee with slow circles. "Nothing bad. Just, I noticed some totals are higher." I forced myself to sip my coffee. It tasted too bitter. "Groceries are more expensive," I said. I hated how quickly my voice went polite, like I was trying to avoid trouble with a customer. He nodded once as if he'd expected that answer. "Right. That's why we need to be tighter. It's not personal. It's just how you keep a household running." I watched him click something, his fingers calm on the keys. "I'm thinking we do a simple rule. No cash withdrawals without telling me first. It's messy, hard to track." My throat closed. I kept my face still, even though it felt like he'd reached inside my coat pocket and touched the bills I'd hidden there. "Okay," I said, because my body had learned that okay was the safest word. He smiled, relieved, like the problem was solved. "Thank you. I'm doing this for us." For the rest of the day, everything felt like it had a thin layer of glass over it. I went to work. I answered calls. I nodded at people. But inside, all I could think about was the job offer sitting like a live wire in my inbox. Thrilling and terrifying. A door cracked open in a wall I'd stopped questioning. At lunch, Maya and I sat in her car, our plastic containers balanced on our laps. The windows were fogged around the edges from our breath. She talked about her nephew's birthday party, about how her sister always overdid it with decorations. I laughed in the right places, but my mind kept slipping. Finally, she paused and looked at me. "Okay," she said. "What's going on?" I stared at my fork. The chicken looked pale and rubbery. My mouth open, closed again. Saying it out loud felt like lighting a match in a room full of gas. "I got an email," I said carefully. "A job. Out of state." Her eyebrows lifted. "That's huge." I nodded, and the nod made my throat burn. "It's a good offer." Maya didn't immediately celebrate. That was one reason I liked her. She didn't slap happiness over things like a sticker. "And you look like you're about to throw up," she said softly. A laugh escaped me, sharp and small. "Yeah." She kept her voice low. "Does he know?" "No," I said quickly. Then quieter. "I don't know how to tell him." Maya leaned back in her seat, watching the parking lot through the windshield like she needed somewhere else to look. "Are you scared of him?" she asked, not dramatic, just direct. The word scared sat in my chest like a weight. I thought of his calm tone, his rules, the way he could make my whole body feel wrong without raising his voice. "I don't know," I lied. Or maybe I just didn't want to hear myself say yes. Maya nodded slowly anyway, like she heard the truth behind it. "Whatever you decide," she said, "please don't decide alone." That night at home I made pasta. I watched the water boil, bubbles punching the surface, and I tried to picture myself in another state, another apartment, another kitchen. In the picture, the overhead light wasn't so harsh. In the picture, I could breathe. He came in, loosened his tie, kissed my cheek like a habit. "Smells good," he said. We ate at the dining table. He talked about a guy at work who couldn't manage his money and was always complaining. Some people just don't know how to be responsible. he said, twirling pasta on his fork. They want freedom without structure. I kept my eyes on my plate. The word freedom landed like a threat. After dinner, he opened his laptop again. Come here, he called, and I went because not going would make the air change. He patted the chair next to him. I sat, close enough to smell his cologne and the faint bitterness of coffee. The screen showed our bank account, the joint one. Every transaction listed like a confession. I'm setting up alerts, he said, clicking through menus. So we both stay informed. Both. But it wasn't for both of us. It was for him and for me to remember he could see. He turned to me, his face calm. This isn't about control, he said. It's about trust. You trust me, right? My heart thudded once heavy. The question wasn't really a question. It was a test. A trap disguised as a soft place to stand. Of course, I said. He studied me, then nodded, satisfied. Good. Because I don't want money secrets in this house. That night I waited until his breathing deepened. The bedroom was dark, but I could see the shape of his shoulders rising and falling. I slipped out of bed carefully, my feet quiet on the carpet. In the hallway the air was cooler, and every creak of the floorboard sounded like a shout. In the laundry room I opened the cabinet where I kept the detergent. Behind it, taped to the wall, was an envelope with my hidden cash. I peeled it down, my fingers clumsy. I counted the bills on the dryer, the metal cold under my palms. Not much. Not enough to start over. But enough to remind me I wasn't completely trapped. I put the money back, retaped the envelope, and stood there for a moment, the dryer looming like a silent witness. The house smelled like clean fabric and something else, something like fear. The next day I checked my second account at lunch. The balance was higher than it had ever been. I stared at the number until it blurred. It wasn't just money. It was time. It was small stolen pieces of my own life. The job offer email asked for a response by Friday. Thursday evening, he came home earlier than usual. I was folding towels on the couch. The TV was on but muted, just a moving background. He stood in the doorway watching me. We need to talk, he said. My fingers stopped mid-fold. The towel hung in my hands like a flag. Okay, I managed. He walked in slowly, sat across from me. He didn't take off his jacket. That tiny detail made my skin prickle. He wasn't settling in. He was coming in to do something. I got a notification today, he said, voice level. About a login attempt. My mouth went dry. The second account. Had I messed up? Had I left something open? My brain ran through every step like a frantic checklist. He tilted his head, eyes steady. Do you have any accounts I don't know about? He asked, almost kindly. The room felt too bright even though only one lamp was on. I could hear the refrigerator hum from the kitchen. The same steady breath as yesterday. The air in my lungs seemed suddenly hard to move. I forced a small laugh. No, I said. Why would I? He didn't laugh back. He leaned forward slightly. Because people do strange things when they feel restless, he said. And I've noticed you've been different. My heart hammered. My mind flashed to the email. To Maya's face. To the envelope taped behind detergent. He reached across the coffee table and picked up my phone, which I had left there without thinking. He held it like it weighed nothing, like it belonged to him. Unlock it, he said. And in that moment, with his calm voice and my own pulse roaring in my ears, I realized I was standing on the edge of something that couldn't be undone. My thumb hovered over the screen like it didn't belong to me. The phone felt suddenly too small to hold everything it contained. Every message, every search, every quiet plan I'd made at lunch with my sandwich wrapped in wax paper. He held it out, not like he was asking, but like he was offering me the chance to prove I was good. The lamp beside the couch buzzed faintly. I had never noticed that sound before. Now it felt like a countdown. Why? I asked, and my voice came out thinner than I wanted. He watched me with that calm expression he wore when he wanted to be the reasonable one. Because you're acting secretive, he said. And secrets make people do stupid things. I'm trying to protect what we have. There it was again. Protect. Always the same words that made me feel guilty for wanting air. I swallowed. You can't just. He lifted a hand, gentle, like I was getting worked up over nothing. I'm not accusing you, he said. I'm asking you to help me feel secure. You want me to feel secure, don't you? The question had a hook in it. If I said no, I was selfish. If I said yes, I was handing him the last private corner of my life. My phone vibrated in his hand, a soft tremor, and my stomach clenched. What if it was an email from the recruiter? What if the subject line flashed across the screen? What if Maya texted me something normal that suddenly looked suspicious? I forgot my passcode. I lied. It was pathetic. I heard it as soon as it left my mouth. His eyebrows rose just a millimeter. You forgot, he repeated, and there was a hint of disappointment, like I'd failed a simple task. I changed it, I corrected quickly. A while ago. I can't remember what I changed it to. I tried to laugh to make it sound like a harmless quirk. My lips felt stiff. He didn't laugh. He set the phone on the coffee table between us like it was evidence. That's not like you, he said. I stared at the phone. My mind raced through possibilities, trying to find a safe path in a room that was closing in. If I unlocked it, he would scroll until he found something that gave him power. If I refused, he would mark it as rebellion and tighten the rules until I couldn't breathe. He leaned back and crossed his arms. Tell me what's going on, he said, softer now. I'm your husband. I shouldn't have to guess. The TV screen flickered silently, changing scenes, bright colors with no sound. My hands were cold. I forced them to rest on my knees so he wouldn't see them shake. I've just been tired, I said. Work's been busy. He nodded like he accepted that, but his eyes didn't move away from me. Busy enough to forget your passcode, he said. Busy enough to be distant. I felt something sharp rise behind my ribs. Not anger exactly. More like the sudden realization that this was a pattern with no end. If I gave him my phone, he'd want my email. If I gave him my email, he'd want my work calendar. If I gave him my calendar, he'd start checking my car mileage. He smiled, a small controlled smile. I don't want to fight, he said. I want us to be stronger. I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. He stood up, finally taking off his jacket. The shift was subtle. Okay, he said, like he was putting this problem away for now. We'll talk about it later. But I'm not ignoring it. When he walked toward the kitchen, my body unlocked. I stood too, pretending to straighten a pillow, and watched him from the corner of my eye. He opened the pantry, moved a few things around, as if he had a sudden need to make everything orderly. His version of calm. That night I couldn't sleep. The house had its nighttime noises, the heating system clicking, a distant dog barking, the faint pop of the refrigerator cycling on and off. Every sound made my muscles jump. I lay beside him, staring into the dark, listening to his breathing. Even in sleep, he took up space like certainty. Around 1 a.m, he rolled over and draped an arm across my waist. The weight of it made my skin crawl, not because it was cruel, but because it felt like a claim. Like a reminder that my body, my time, my choices were part of the household budget too. In the morning, he was cheerful. Too cheerful. He made pancakes, flipping them with unnecessary skill. We're going to have a good weekend, he said, pouring syrup like a man who believed he was generous. I nodded and ate, my fork scraping the plate louder than usual. On my way to work, I stopped at a gas station I didn't normally use. I paid cash. I bought a cheap prepaid debit card from the rack near the register, my heart pounding as if I'd stolen something. The cashier didn't look at me twice. I tucked the card into the bottom of my purse under a pack of tissues. At lunch, I sat in a stall in the office bathroom, the lid down, my knees pulled close. It felt ridiculous hiding in there like a teenager, but it was the only place with a lock that belonged to me. I used the prepaid card to create a new email address on my phone. Something boring. Something that didn't sound like me. My fingers were clumsy from nerves. I typed the recruiter's address from memory and sent a message. I accept. Please send next steps. When I hit send, my chest tightened. There was no going back from that click. I left the bathroom and washed my hands longer than necessary, watching the water run, pretending the world hadn't just shifted under my feet. Maya found me by the copier later. She didn't speak right away, just stood beside me while the machine whirred. You look pale, she said finally. I kept my eyes on the paper tray. He asked for my phone, I said quietly. Her face tightened. Did you give it to him? No, I admitted. I lied. Good, she said, and the word came out sharp, surprising me. Then she softened. Okay. That's a sign. It means your instincts are working. I wanted to tell her about the prepaid card, the new email, the acceptance. But the fear of saying it out loud made me cautious, like I was carrying something fragile through a crowded room. Do you have someone else? Maya asked. Family? A sister? My sister lives 2 states away, I said. We're not that close. Maya nodded, thinking. Then you need a plan, she said. A real one. Not just money in envelopes. The word plan made my skin prickle because it made everything sound serious. Like leaving was an action, not a feeling. That evening when I got home, he was in the living room with his laptop again. He didn't look up right away. He was waiting. I called the bank today, he said as soon as I set my keys down. My heart stumbled. Why? He glanced at me, calm as ever. To ask about security alerts, he said. They mentioned there was a recent attempt to open a new account connected to our address. My mouth went dry so fast it felt like paper. He closed the laptop slowly and stood. It's probably nothing, he said, walking toward me. But I want you to look me in the eye and tell me you're not hiding anything. The distance between us shrank. His voice stayed gentle. His face stayed controlled. But I could feel the pressure in the room like weather changing. I looked at his eyes, the eyes I once thought meant safety, and I realized my body already knew the truth. In my purse, the prepaid card felt like a secret that could burn through fabric. Tell me, he said again, softer now. Are you planning something? And before I could stop myself, before my fear could smooth my face into the right expression, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A new email. From the recruiter. And in that split second, I knew the subject line was about to light up my screen like a flare. The buzz was small, almost polite. But in that room it sounded like a siren. His eyes dropped to my purse, then to my pocket. He didn't move fast. He didn't have to. He just waited, letting the silence do the work. The air felt thick, like the house had swallowed all the oxygen. I forced my hand into my pocket before he could suggest it. My fingers closed around the phone. The screen was faced toward my thigh, but I could feel the light through the fabric as it woke up. I didn't dare look. I didn't dare let him see. Who is it? He asked, voice still even. Work, I said too quickly. The lie had edges. I tried to smooth them. Just scheduling. He nodded slowly, like he was considering whether to believe me. Then he held out his hand. Not aggressive. Almost patient. Let me see, he said. I didn't move. My hand stayed in my pocket, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles ached. His expression changed in a way most people wouldn't notice. A small tightening around the mouth. A tiny cooling behind the eyes. Like a thermostat turned down. Okay, he said, quiet. So you're not going to show me? I didn't say that, I whispered. My throat felt tight. Can we not do this right now? He gave a short, humorless breath that could have been a laugh if it had warmth. Right, he said. Because it's never a good time to talk about trust. He walked past me toward the kitchen. For a second I thought he was backing off. Then I heard the click of the wall panel. The Wi-Fi router. The house internet. The little lights that always blinked steadily, like a heartbeat. The lights went dark. I stood there, stunned. He came back holding the router's power cord like he just unplugged a lamp. You don't need internet if you're not hiding anything, he said, still calm. We'll plug it back in after we talk. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just control. It was strategy. Quiet, practical, like turning off a faucet. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't threatening. He was simply taking away options. I need internet for work sometimes, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You can use the office, he replied. Or you can use your phone data if it's truly necessary. But I think, he added, watching my face, we both know what's necessary. I felt heat behind my eyes. Not tears. Something sharper. The realization that I was being handled like a problem to solve. I set my purse down slowly on the entryway bench. Like if I moved carefully enough the moment wouldn't explode. I'm tired, I said. Can we talk tomorrow? He shook his head once. No, he said. Because tomorrow you'll be tired again. And the next day. And I'll still be standing here wondering why my wife is clutching her phone like it's a weapon. I flinched at the word weapon even though he didn't mean it that way. He meant it as a joke. A small joke with a sharp point. He stepped closer. Not invading, just close enough to make me feel the size of him in the room. "Unlock it," he said again. "Or tell me what this is really about." For a second I saw a path where I gave in. I could unlock the phone. I could show him something harmless. I could scroll fast, hide the email, pretend. But my mind raced ahead. If he saw nothing, he'd still know I resisted. He'd still tighten the leash. He'd still keep testing me until he found the crack. And the email was already there. Even if I didn't open it, he might. He might take the phone and open it while I slept. He'd done things like that before, quiet checks he justified as care. The fear in my body shifted into something else. A strange clarity. Like stepping back from myself and finally seeing the whole picture. I took the phone out of my pocket and held it at my side, screen down. "I'm not cheating," I said, because that was the accusation most husbands made. And I wanted to take that off the table. His eyes narrowed slightly. "I didn't say you were." "No," I said. "But you're acting like I'm guilty of something." His jaw tightened. "Then prove you're not." The living room felt too clean, too staged. The throw blanket folded perfectly. The family photos on the shelf aligned. Our life arranged like a display. And yet I could feel how fragile it was, how much of it was held together by my willingness to shrink. "I applied for a job," I said. The words hit the air and hung there. My chest tightened like I'd stepped into cold water. He stared at me. "A job?" he repeated slow. "In another state," I added, because if I didn't say it now, he'd pull it out of me anyway. For a moment he didn't react. Then he let out a long breath and rubbed his forehead, like I'd given him a headache. "Why would you do that without talking to me?" he asked. His tone wasn't shocked. It was disappointed, like I'd broken a household rule. I held the phone tighter. "Because you would have said no." He looked at me, and for the first time that evening there was something sharper in his eyes. Not rage. More like offense. "That's ridiculous," he said. "I'm your husband. We make decisions together." "We." The word tasted bitter. "You make decisions," I said quietly. He blinked as if he hadn't heard me correctly. "Excuse me." My heart hammered. I could feel my pulse in my ears. But the words kept coming anyway, like once a dam cracked, the water didn't ask permission. "You decide what we spend. You decide what's reasonable. You decide when I'm being dramatic. You decide what counts as trust." His face went still. "So this is about money," he said, voice controlled. "You're upset about the budget again." "It's not the budget," I whispered. "It's that I don't exist in it. I'm a line item." He stared at me like I'd started speaking another language. Then his expression softened suddenly, too suddenly, and it felt like watching a mask slip back into place. "Listen," he said, stepping closer, voice warm now, soothing. "You're stressed. You've been stressed. I get it. But running away isn't the answer. People who leave don't get happier. They get lonely. They get scared. They come crawling back because reality is harder than fantasy." My stomach twisted. He wasn't yelling. He was painting pictures. He was putting fear in the future like it belonged there. "I got an offer," I said, and my voice surprised me. It was steady. "I haven't told you because I knew you'd do this." He smiled slightly like I'd proven his point. "Do what?" he asked. "Try to keep my marriage together?" The word together sounded like a cage. He reached out and gently touched my wrist. His fingers were warm. His grip was light, but it anchored me in place. "We can fix this," he said. "We can tighten things up. We can set goals. I'll even involve you more if that's what you need. But you don't get to make a major decision alone. That's not partnership." I looked down at his hand on my wrist. Light grip. Heavy meaning. In my head, Maya's voice. "Don't decide alone." I swallowed. "I need time," I said. He released my wrist and nodded, as if he'd granted something. "Okay," he said. "Time. But we're going to be smart about it." He walked to the hallway closet and opened it. The sound of the door sliding made my skin prickle. He reached up to the top shelf and pulled down the small lockbox where we kept documents. Passports, birth certificates, insurance papers. He set it on the coffee table with a dull thud. "We're going to organize," he said. We're going to know exactly what we have. And we're going to stop all this secret stuff. My mouth went dry. The lockbox. My passport was in there. My life was in there. He opened it and began sorting papers into piles. His movements were calm, methodical, like he was doing spring cleaning, like he wasn't quietly taking away the things I would need to leave. "Where's your passport?" he asked without looking up. "In there," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. He nodded. Then he slid it into his side of the pile, closer to him. "Just so we don't misplace anything," he said. My stomach turned over. He kept talking as he sorted, his voice gentle, almost kind. "You don't have to be afraid," he said. "You're safe here. I take care of you." Most women would be grateful. Grateful. The word pressed on my chest like a hand. I looked at the lockbox, at the papers, at the way he was rearranging my access to my own identity. And something inside me went quiet in a new way. Not numb. Clear. If I stayed, he would keep my life in boxes he controlled. He would call it stability. He would call it love. And one day I would wake up and realize I couldn't remember the sound of my own voice when it wasn't trying to be acceptable. He finished sorting and closed the lockbox. Then he snapped the small lock shut and slipped the key off the ring. He held it between his fingers for a second, almost absent-minded. "I'll keep this," he said casually, "just until you're feeling more steady." The lamp buzzed again. The house felt suddenly smaller. I stared at the key in his hand, the lockbox on the table, the Wi-Fi still dead, my phone heavy with an unopened email. And in my mind a list began forming, quiet and practical. Documents. Cash. Timing. A bag. He looked at me and smiled as if nothing had changed. "We'll be fine," he said. "You'll see." But I didn't say okay this time. I walked to the bathroom and closed the door, turning the lock with a soft click. I sat on the edge of the tub, shaking. My phone screen glowed in the dim light. I finally looked. Subject line: offer details and start date confirmed. My hand flew to my mouth to stop the sound that tried to come out. Then I heard his voice from the hallway, too close, too calm. "Who are you texting in there?" he called. And I realized the next move I made, every move, would either shrink my life or save it. I stared at the email until the words stopped looking like language and started looking like shapes. My thumb hovered over the screen, not sure what would ruin me faster, replying or not replying. The bathroom fan rattled when I turned it on, a thin mechanical whine that barely covered the sound of my own breathing. "Just work," I called through the door, and my voice came out steadier than I felt. There was a pause on the other side. Then his footsteps moved away, slow, deliberate, like he wanted me to hear that he was choosing not to push. For now. I sat there a few more seconds, letting my heartbeat settle into something I could manage. Then I forwarded the recruiter's email to my new address with shaking fingers, adding a short note to myself: "Print this. Save it." I didn't trust my phone anymore. Not in this house. When I came out, the living room looked the same as it always did. The folded blanket. The framed photo from the beach where we were smiling into bright sun. But the air felt different. Like everything had a second meaning now. He was at the kitchen table again, laptop open, making little tapping sounds on the keys. He looked up as if nothing had happened. "Feeling better?" he asked. "Yeah," I lied. He nodded and gestured to the chair. "Sit," he said, still pleasant. "I want to talk about a plan." A plan. His favorite word. It meant I was about to be placed back into the system. I sat across from him. The overhead light reflected off the tabletop, glossy and hard. He slid a paper toward me. A list he'd typed. "Household rules moving forward," it said at the top. "No more cash withdrawals. Shared passwords for transparency. Weekly spending reviews. A note about discipline." My mouth felt numb. "This is a lot," I said carefully. "It's structure," he corrected. "It's what keeps us from falling apart." I looked at the list and felt that quiet clarity return. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't begging. He was tightening control the way you tighten a belt. One notch at a time until breathing becomes optional. "I need to sleep," I said. "I'll read it tomorrow." His eyes narrowed slightly. "We're not putting this off," he said, still calm, but the calm now had an edge. I forced myself to meet his gaze. "I'm tired," I said again, and I let the words sit there without apology. For a moment he just watched me measuring. Then he smiled softly, like he'd decided to be generous. Fine, he said. Tomorrow. But I'm keeping the lockbox key tonight. He said it like it was nothing, like you'd say you were keeping the TV remote. Okay, I said, because I needed the conversation to end, because I needed him to believe he had won for the night. In bed he fell asleep quickly. I lay awake staring into the dark, listening to the house settle. The heating clicked. The wind pushed against the window. A car passed outside, the headlights sliding across the ceiling like a slow sweep. My mind moved in tight circles. I could stay and try to fix it. I could argue, negotiate, promise, plead for space inside a marriage that called my independence a threat. I could spend years doing that. And at the end, what would be left of me? The thought came quietly, not as drama but as fact. Staying would erase me. Not all at once. Not with a big scene. Just by inches, like paint fading in the sun. Around 2 a.m, I slipped out of bed and walked barefoot to the laundry room. The floor was cold. I moved slowly, listening for any sound from him. When I reached the cabinet, my fingers found the edge of the taped envelope behind the detergent. I peeled it down and counted the bills again on the dryer. Still not enough to feel brave. But enough to act. I took the envelope and didn't put it back this time. I tucked it into my purse underneath the tissues, underneath the prepaid card, underneath the careful life I'd been living. Then I went to the hall closet where our coats hung. Above them on the top shelf was an old shoebox with winter scarves. I pulled it down and found what I needed. My birth certificate copy, tucked there from years ago when I'd used it for a job form. I hadn't even remembered it was there. My hand shook as I held it like it was something holy. Back in the bedroom, I slid open my nightstand drawer. Inside, under a tangle of old chargers, was my passport wallet. My heart lurched. Had he really put it in the lockbox? Had I misremembered? No, it was here. I must have moved it months ago without thinking. The fact that I had it felt like a tiny door unlocking somewhere in my chest. I slid it into my purse too. In the morning, I went to work with a smile that felt painted on. My stomach was tight all day. Every time my phone buzzed, I flinched. But he didn't call. He didn't text. That silence wasn't peace. It was watchfulness. At lunch, I told Maya everything in a rush, my words tumbling over each other like they had been trapped behind my teeth. He unplugged the Wi-Fi, I whispered, staring at my hands. He took the lockbox key. He wrote rules like I'm a kid. And he thinks I'm going to just accept it. Maya's face stayed steady, but her eyes sharpened with focus. Okay, she said. Listen to me. You don't need to convince him. You just need to get out safely. Quietly. The word safely made my throat tighten. I don't want drama, I said. I don't want him to explode. Then don't give him a moment to react, she said gently. You leave when he's at work. You don't announce it. You don't negotiate. You take what you need and you go. I swallowed hard. Where do I go? Maya didn't hesitate. My sister has a spare room, she said. It's local. 1 week too. Enough to get your feet under you. And I can drive you. But you have to decide. Decide. That was the word that made my chest ache. Because deciding meant admitting this was real. The job offer deadline was Friday. Thursday night he was extra attentive. He brought home takeout from my favorite place like he remembered who I used to be. He asked about my day. He laughed at my jokes. He even touched my hand across the table. You see, he said softly, we're fine. We just needed a reset. I nodded and chewed food I couldn't taste. I watched him with a new kind of sadness. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't a cartoon villain. He believed his version of love was correct. He believed I should fit inside it. And that belief made him dangerous in a quiet way. After dinner, he said, tomorrow we finalize those rules. We'll go over your phone too. No more weirdness. He said it gently like a promise. I smiled because I needed him calm. Okay, I said, because okay was still useful sometimes. That night I packed while he showered. Not a suitcase. Just a tote bag. Plain one. I folded clothes in a way that didn't wrinkle like I was doing laundry. 2 pairs of jeans. A sweater. Underwear. My work badge. My charger. The envelope of cash. the passport wallet, the birth certificate copy, my inhaler, a small framed photo of my mom when she was young, because I needed something that reminded me I came from somewhere else. I hid the tote in the trunk of my car under an old blanket. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and waited for him to finish showering, my heart thumping like it wanted to escape first. Friday morning, the house smelled like coffee and toast. He kissed my forehead before leaving. "Love you," he said, and the words were automatic. He grabbed his briefcase, his keys, and walked out. I stood in the doorway watching him back down the driveway. The moment his car disappeared around the corner, my body moved on its own. Fast, precise, like I'd been rehearsing without knowing it. I didn't pack more. I didn't wander around saying goodbye to rooms. I went straight to the closet, grabbed my work bag, grabbed my purse, and walked out. My hand shook so hard I almost dropped my keys. In the car, I sat for 1 second with my forehead against the steering wheel. The steering wheel smelled faintly like sun-warmed plastic and my own lotion. I breathed in and out, trying to make my lungs obey. Then I drove. I didn't go straight to Maya's sister's house. I went to the bank first, the one near my office, not the one he always used. My fingers trembled as I filled out the form to open an account in my name only. The teller smiled like this was just another Friday morning. She didn't know she was watching me become a person again. I used the prepaid email to accept the offer officially while sitting in my car in the parking lot, the sun flashing off windshields around me. When I hit send, I felt a strange rush. Not joy exactly, but relief so strong it made me dizzy. My phone buzzed a few minutes later. His name. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. Then it buzzed again. And again. I didn't answer. My chest hurt, but my hand stayed steady on the wheel. I drove to Maya's sister's place, a small townhouse with a little patch of grass out front. Maya met me there, parked behind me like a shield. She didn't talk much. She just helped me carry the tote inside like it was groceries, like this was normal. In the spare room, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. The room smelled like clean sheets and someone else's laundry detergent. The quiet was different here. Not tense. Just quiet. My phone buzzed again. A text this time. "Where are you?" Then another. "Don't do this. We can talk." Then another. "You're overreacting." The messages came like steps behind me. Familiar words. Familiar pressure. He was trying to pull me back into the pattern. My hand shook as I typed one message. Just one. Not a long explanation. Not a fight. "I'm safe. I need space. Please don't come here." I stared at the words before sending. My thumb hovered. The old fear whispered, "Don't make him angry. Don't invite consequences." Then that quiet clarity returned again, stronger now, like a spine. I hit send. A minute later, the phone rang. I let it ring. I turned it face down on the bed. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, a woman was watering a plant on her porch. A dog barked somewhere. Life moved on, ordinary and unconcerned. In that moment, I didn't feel heroic. I felt terrified. I felt grief, too, grief for the version of myself who had once believed love meant handing over the keys to your life. But underneath the fear and grief, there was something I hadn't felt in years. Space. I exhaled long and slow, and it felt like I was breathing for the first time without permission.